know that there has had to have been some sacrifice, whether it's time or nutrition or whatever it is.
Recording of myself talking about having a relationship with my chest.
I'm Ben Canning.
I'm Dave Kennedy.
And this is Hacking Health Podcast. Yo, I've just realized I've put the wrong number in. I think we're on episode 147. Anyway, welcome to episode 147 of Hacking Your Health Podcast with Ben and Dave. We are back.
We're back. Are you sure it's 147?
I think so.
Okay. All right.
If not, I'll just dub over.
I'll job here. Just throwing that out there.
I have spent the past 3 hours planning what we're going to talk about today.
I know.
Apart from the number of.
Are you sure?
It's 147. Yes.
Okay. All right.
I know it is for sure. Right. What's going on, dude? You were in Tampa. Talk about that. Let's go.
Tampa. Yes. So the Tampa update was good. First of all, I found this necklace that I haven't worn in a long time, and it's like a cool necklace that I've never shown. This is an actual Thor hammer from the old Viking days. Like it's nice. From the Viking days, and it's Thor's hammer. So
hold on, you find it? Where did you find it?
Well, so I was cleaning out my bedroom, and it's one I used to wear all the time, and I don't know why I stopped wearing it, but like it was just gone. And then I was cleaning out like this, you know those drawers that you have that
it just has stuff.
For some reason yesterday, I was like, I got nothing going on. I'm gonna start cleaning out like my supplements drawer, my pills drawer, like my
one of those decisions you make, and then about half an hour, and you're like, oh, "Fuck,
yeah,
this is the wrong decision."
Oh, there's shit everywhere, and I got to the one drawer. Erin's sitting there on the bed, she's watching a TV show. This is like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I get to the one drawer, I'm like, oh my god, I really don't want to deal with this right now. Like I just got done doing so I did the drawers that were like we have our own separate bathroom drawers, for like cologne and stuff like that or whatever. They're two separate. So she's got her own mirror, I got my own mirror, and I always have trouble cramming stuff into the drawers for the. So I finally cleaned all those out. I cleaned like all my old like pills from like supplements that I haven't like L-carnitine. I kind of phased that out. I don't have that anymore. IP Moral, and I don't take that anymore. Like I had all of these like peptides and stuff that are just stocked up. So I tossed all of those. I looked at the expiration dates and everything. Tossed all those. And then, I get to this drawer and I start cleaning it out. And there's I have like 4 or 5 blood pressure monitors. Like, why do I need 4 or 5 blood pressure monitors? No idea. And I'm going through this drawer of just like technology that I have just used and abused for years and years and years and never used again. So it was a mass cleaning session. And I found this amazing necklace that I haven't worn in forever. It's really cool. It's like literally an antique from the Viking time where, and I'm 1% Viking. So, okay. I have Viking blood in me, which is great. So I'm holding on to that 1%, and which is why I'm such a badass.
Sounds like a good name for pre-workout, Viking blood.
1% Viking blood. Yeah. Viking blood actually does something good pre-workout.
Coming soon to a supplement store near you.
Yes. Yeah, we should do the peach, not peach, Viking blood.
I don't know. We can see.
Yeah. Anyways, so last week went to Tampa, and that was to finalize a lot of the flavors that we have. And actually, I have the purchase orders right here in front of me, sitting here that I have to sign and send back, and send a 50% upfront cost. And we're going to be rock and roll. And they're going to start sourcing all the ingredients, which they already have a source. They're going to start purchasing all the ingredients to get and then mixed and flavored and all that stuff, and we should be rock and roll. And the goal is to have everything ready to go for at least our whey, and it's not just whey isolate, it's whey isolate hydrolyzed, which is even better. Allows your body to absorb the branched chain amino acids, and it's much easier in the GI tract, and also removes most of the lactose that's there. So it's a great process. It's the most pure form of essentially whey isolate protein that you can get. It's top end, top notch protein. Nothing less than for our folks, that are purchasing it. And then the pre-workouts to go, but it was great. So I got to go to we're using Synergy, which is a buddy of mine's company for the mixing of all of the supplements. So I got to go see Synergy Labs out in Tampa, and really, really cool facility. They were there, and what they're able to do is absolutely crazy. I mean, so they're mixing thousands of buckets of powder a minute. It's like they can crank through stuff so fast in these conveyor belts and machines, and it's just incredible what they're able to do. And the the family that owns it are good friends of mine. They live literally right down the street. Good folks, and they literally, it's such a cool story on what they were able to build. And Chris listens to the podcast, so Chris, if you're listening, shout out to you. But these two are like mad scientist geniuses, especially Chris. Like Chris can be like, hey, I'm kind of interested in building a rocket ship, so I'm gonna build a rocket ship and it's gonna go to the moon, and he'll do it. Like he's building a tree house for his daughter. And this thing has like automated, like retractable, like slides that, like doors that go downward and upward. It's all mechanical. Like it's crazy, like how minds work. And, Chris's story is really amazing. He was into the cigarette automated business. So a long time ago, when cigarette taxes came out, they in the United States, they increased the taxes on cigarettes. So cigarettes became super expensive overnight, right? But there was a loophole through it, which was if you rolled your own, you didn't get taxed with it. So people would go to the store and buy, packing tobacco, and they'd roll their own cigarettes. Well, Chris invented this machine that automatically would crank out like 50 hand rolled cigarettes in like 30 seconds. And so it was like a massive business overnight, because all of these gas stations, things like that were purchasing his invention, and all of a sudden now he's got this massive business. Well, they tucked in one of the bills, one of these crazy bills that had nothing to do with it. The lobbyists got to the politicians and made it illegal to automate hand rolling of cigarettes. So it knocked his business out overnight. What does Chris do? Well, instead of going down and in the dirt and everything else, they go and they start another business, and they started Synergy. And this is a 3.5-year-old company. And I'll tell you, man, like, I don't know how they do it. Like this, the automation they have there, the really, first of all, the people are awesome. Like they're just super cool, down to earth folks. And but the production line that they have there, it just amazes me what they're able to do, both with liquids as well as powders. And it's cool because you could actually see these machines and these the tinctures go through. And they have like a steam machine that shrinks it and seals it. They have ones that actually turn it to a certain notch. So each time you unscrew like a bottle, it's each one is exactly the same of how much pressure you have to unscrew or screw. And this is all automated throughout the whole process, right? You just have folks loading in the powders, and they have this. They were joking. There's this grinder machine. And you literally, the only way that you could turn this grinder machine on is if you leave the room and you hit a button to turn it on, because it will literally turn you into dust. Like there'll be nothing left of you. It will grind human beings into nothing. So, but the process of how they do extracts and how they're able to get more potency out of certain things. And, it's just, it's all science and machines and all of this really cool stuff. So it was really neat. So I got to go there last week, and, we started off the day with taste testing, and then we made some adjustments to some of the flavors, most specifically on the vegan ones. A couple changes to the formulas, but we approved there the whey protein, the vanilla and the chocolate, and the strawberry lime and the peach not peach version, and so all really tasty. Very impressed with how they turned out. I'll tell you I'm not a big vanilla guy. I could drink the vanilla whey.
The vanilla was very good. Yeah. The French vanilla one.
Yes.
It was very good. Like, and again, I'm not a vanilla guy, but I was like, yeah, I'm in for this, which is cool. So yeah.
I'll tell you, the chocolate to me actually tastes better than Dynamite's Cocoa Pebbles.
Big statements here. We're not fucking around.
A big statement, because listen, I am a creature of habit, and there's two things that have changed. Not because they're my own supplements, but it's really hard to sway me away from Alpha Lion. I've tried. I've bought every friggin' pre-workout you can possibly imagine, from what was the one that killed me, like Black Ops.
The Black Ops.
that one was
Bobby in the chat. I don't know if you saw in the chat on Discord. Bobby was like, I've got this sample. I've never had pre-workout before, and I was like, and you're starting with Black Ops?
With Black Ops, which is the most potent pre-workout
I have. So
yeah.
Last April, whenever I was in Orlando, Matt and it was the first time I was like, get my hands on a tub. I still have the tub unopened in the cupboard. I'm like, I'm not fucking going near this. I bought it to have it just in case.
So if you want to experience near-death experiences, but probably the best workout you're ever going to get, the Redcon 1 Black Ops, I'm pretty sure there's like cocaine and heroin and acid in there or something. Like there's something that's not right. Like the cold sweat that you get, like you get this cold sweat. I had to use the bathroom like normally I call it poop juice, but I only go once. I had to go like 60 times, and I felt like total ass the entire time. But now it did give me a lot of energy, but I almost died at the end of it. So it's just like, is it really worth it? So I never touch Black Ops again. That's a crazy pre-workout. So if you're into like the most stim ever and you want to tout with living or dying, Black Ops is probably the way to go with it. So,
life or death.
Yeah. And it's not that knock the folks out. We love Redcon 1. They're amazing.
Yeah.
Their other pre-workout, Total War, is awesome. Like just Black Ops is a little bit overboard for me. But I'll tell you, so Alpha Lion is like my staple go-to pre-workout, and we do have some of the same ingredients, like the S7, for example, the berry extracts, which is a patented, has multiple clinical studies in it. We license it out from them to be able to bring in the source from SM and the berries, which is the nitric oxide, blood pump, all that other stuff, which is great. But I have fully switched to our pre-workout.
Same.
One, it's 100, so I only do one scoop now, which is 200 milligrams of caffeine, and it's the short, extended, and delayed caffeine, which is going to give you that not the crashes that you see. But I don't need the 300 to 350 milligrams of caffeine anymore. I get enough focus, nootropic energy, and recovery within the ingredients that we have in there that I don't need the extra one. But for those that really want high stim, that's why we did 200. So you could do one scoop or two scoops to get to the 200 or 400 with that, and the citrulline malate, and everything else. Again, just a great recipe, great formula. Synergy was awesome, and it was cool is because like we got to taste test, and the vegan just wasn't there yet, and there's some reasons for it. We went with this vegan organic superfoods, which we're gonna actually go more towards just a vegan protein. So the superfoods is a great idea, but it's a very, very niche market, and it's not one that we really want to get into. And so we decided to switch the formula from not being superfoods because it's really difficult to flavor when you're starting to add like kale and broccoli extracts and like all this other stuff. Listen, that shit does not taste good. All right.
Unless you want to have a broccoli flavored protein shake,
Yeah. The guy that was there was doing the flavoring. He's like, I've put so much vanilla and so much like sweetener in this, and it's still not there. I still got the chalky, everything else. So we went back more towards a basic formula, pea protein, and a bunch of others, and we got a really good base. I'm still waiting for a couple samples on the chocolate and the vanilla, but that may not be ready by DEF CON, but surely the pre-workout and the whey will be done. So it was a great time, and kudos to Chris and Jess. They were awesome hosts while we were there, and their whole team there was just absolutely really cool, and they're super smart. Like they're going into like the science of everything, and I'm like, so I'm geeking out. I'm seeing all those machines flying around and stuff everywhere, and it was a good time. So good time. It was like 100 degrees out though, so it was roasting outside. But they have climate controlled things for all the ingredients and everything. So really good. They're FDA approved. All this other stuff. They go through audits. It's an amazing facility, super clean. It's going to be a great run with them.
Yeah, and I'm not a person that gets jealous a lot, but I was definitely jealous that you were there and I wasn't there. So maybe next product line, next product range, I'm coming with you.
Hey, I'm in.
Yeah, we'll go back.
Hey, me too. So how are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I was just laughing there before I come on. I was rocking out some of the biscuit. I think I mentioned last week. We're recording this a day early because tomorrow I'm going to Limp Bizkit, which is going to be cool. I was in London towards the end of last week, so Matt was hosting an impromptu just one day event. Usually his is like 2 days and it's a whole show, but one of his buddies, a former mentor, a guy called Luke Lehman from the Muscle Nerds, was in Europe. He lives in Australia, originally from Texas. So they just decided to host a one-day thing, and it was hilarious, the two of them presenting together, but it was a lot of fun as well. Like I've heard a lot about Luke and followed him for a while, but actually seeing him present in person and getting to meet him, like I find it difficult to comment on people being absolutely crazy. Like I've seen a lot of crazy shit in my time, but this guy was on another level of crazy. Like so the event they presented all day. We're in this super cool like room that Matt and Sarah had rented out, and then finished up at about 5:30 and everybody was going for dinner and drinks. So we ran back to the hotel, left their stuff off, and he's walking out with his iPad under his arm. And I was like, what are you bringing your iPad for? And he was like, well, just in case anybody asks me a question, and he did like go through things. So like a couple of hours later, you imagine we're in like almost like a street food market with all like these sort of cafeteria style tables. So he sat down there with a big, like a stein, like a liter of beer, and his iPad and about 30 people around him, and he's like talking about like biochemistry and like just all some crazy shit. And I was like, this is the fucking maddest experience. The guy must have had maybe 14 or 15 steins of beer, so like the big liters of beer, and he was still just like going through the whole process. Absolutely hilarious. So it was cool. It was cool to be at it, and actually the topic is what has sort of led us to the conversation that we're going to have today. But yeah, he was a cool guy. A lot of stuff to sort of take away and think about. The best way that I can describe it is: have you ever seen the film Big Hero 6?
Yes.
Okay, so you know the bit whenever the kid in it, he's trying to solve the problem, and his brother comes in and he throws him on his back, and he's running about with him upside down. He's like, "What are you not seeing?" That was exactly how I felt after Friday. I was like, I feel like I've been turned upside down, and not that everything that I know is wrong, but just there are infinite other ways to do things. So it was cool on that, and he's actually coming over with Matt tomorrow, and we're going to go to Yugo, not to make you jealous about that, and then we're going to go to Limp Bizkit. So yeah, things are good.
I'm jealous. I'm double jealous.
Yeah, you know, yeah. I mean, you still time, you can make it. I can change the table. I can get a ticket. But no, things are good. And like I said, that sort of leads me on to what we're going to talk about today. As you know, I'm a person that likes to build and rebuild things, break them down and refine the process. And I've sort of touched on this a couple of times over the past few months in terms of like hacks and the group format and sort of how things work. And we are officially 83 weeks since we launched Hacks as a group training program. The initial sort of podcast that we put out in the plan for it, we executed on, but there have been a lot of sort of changes and refinements over the past however many months that is, I'm not even sure. I think number one, I want to catch up on all those things. And number two, a lot of things became clear in terms of like, you know, I had like a light bulb moment of all the pieces of the puzzle came together. So I've been like racking my brain for the past few months as to like, what way does this need to be, or what's it missing, or like what the framework needs to be. So I spent the past couple of days essentially taking that all apart and putting it back together again as to sort of what the 2.0 version of this is going to look like. And genuinely, I don't want to say I haven't been this excited in a while because I know there's a lot of stuff going on, but in terms of like coaching and a coaching program and what this is going to offer for everybody, I'm very excited about.
Yeah, man. I mean, so you are always the type of person that is continuously trying to improve. Yeah. And that's, the way we should be is always continuously trying to improve. And, you know, one thing that you do well that I do not is you listen. So you absorb things very well from other people's experiences, right? And you can take that and you can rationalize and say, well, while theirs are different, there's some similarities here. And if I look at this in a different way, you know, maybe I can improve what I'm currently doing, and I'm not, you know, stuck in my own kind of black box of what I know is there, right? For me, I really struggle listening to other people's experiences because I can't always see how that relates to me. You know, I look at, you know, a successful entrepreneur, for example, and I'm sure there's many ways that I could look at somebody and say, okay, well, I can apply what they did to me in these different types of ways, right? I don't do that. I will take life lessons that they've learned or things that they've done, but I usually don't try to mimic or change the way I'm doing things because it's different. And that's probably a bad thing. You know, that's probably a bad thing for me because, you know, I'm not continuously learning from what other folks have done in the past, which is typically how we improve and grow, you know, as human beings, right? From other people's mistakes or successes. And so I've always, you know, valued that with you to be able to give like different perspectives of things. I'm kind of a cut and paste, you know, like this is my life, this is what I've done, this is what I know, and I kind of move towards that, which by the way, you know, has worked obviously. Yes. However, you know, it could have worked, you know, tenfold probably with the shortcomings there. And
but I think,
you know, it's kind of crazy when I was at Synergy, just good relation, you know, talk about what they do there. So one of their main guys there, his name is Josh, and Josh was his name is Josh Bowles. He's their operations director, and I spent most of my time actually with Josh and Chris and Jess, and he was doing the flavor mixings and things like that. But one thing that was clear with what they were doing is, you know, they were talking about what they currently have today, but you know, it's taken them 3 years of building this up. But they're also talking about what's going on tomorrow and the next day, and how they can do better automation, how they can leverage AI in their operations process, you know, to really streamline what they're doing and make things much more efficient, so that they're not, you know, they don't have as much manual process or room for error, for example. They're talking about their QA process and how, they do a QA process once a day, through everything. So, they could automate most of that probably and have more of an oversight, with their teams of, making sure. Doesn't mean like switching job roles or things like that, but it's making them more efficient and accurate as they go along and do things. So it was really cool to see, from a manufacturing process, they're continuously iterating, making better, which is exactly what you're doing here, is continuously improving and iterating and doing what you possibly can from your experiences and then also, others. So it's kind of neat.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this thing specifically with Luke, like I laughed because I was like, it sounds like you've been coaching, online coaching for longer than the internet has been a thing. But the way that I would sort of, I was chatting to Matt about this back and forward. Like I think from a coaching perspective, just what you're saying about like looking at the right now and what's going on in terms of the clients that I have, but also having an eye on what their future is, because I often think, and you can maybe relate to this, like if I were to go back 3 years and tell you this is what you will be able to achieve, you probably wouldn't have been able to believe me. So like me having the eye on like what I know is achievable in the future versus keeping an eye on what you're doing right now and always having that sort of like future for you, like good goal setting and like what's the next thing and how do we sort of continue to make sure that we're progressing. So that's something that they sort of touched on. And for me, we've spoken about this before, how originally the 4 pillars for BC training was body, nutrition, lifestyle, and mindset, and even the ability to flip them. Now, I'm not going to change them again, but one of the biggest things that I've sort of seen, in fact, the main thing that people come to me with, or the main focus or what they're trying to achieve is always around health. And I'm not saying that this piece of the puzzle was missing, but it was sort of on the back burner in terms of like it was always thought about, but not necessarily prioritized. And one of the things that we're going to change and how I'm going to do things going forward is it's essentially going to be the main focus for the first phase. And I'll sort of get into that a bit. But overall, the goal with what essentially Hacks 2.0 is going to be is it's still going to be an education process. It's going to be improving your overall like training and nutrition literacy, so like your knowledge around it, and understanding your body and what you need and what the protocol is for you, which I do anyway with the client. So I'm going to take you on a journey as to what that's going to look like. Obviously, the setup is going to be the same in terms of the initial call. So I'll put a link for anybody who wants to book a call. As with when we first launched this, like I do want people to come in and test this out. So I'm going to start a completely separate group as a beta testing group. So like I said, if you want to be a part of it, I'm going to put the link in the description and things like that. The initial call essentially will be me talking with you, for example. Now, you can't be in it because you've been around for too long. But talking about you, getting to know you as a person, what your struggles are, what your goals are, what you've done in the past, where you're at right now, what success you've had in the past, and what sort of has worked or has not worked. Whenever we're talking about goals, one of the things that they mentioned on Friday was talking about more than one goal or one type of goal. So essentially, if we're having this conversation right now, the 3 goals that we will focus on are the 3 goals that we have. So we have something actually like tangible to focus on as we go through the process is going to be a physique related goal, which 99% of the time is going to be something that people come to me with in the first place. A strength related goal, because I've seen over time, people will come to me for like a body composition, like fat loss or whatever it is. But you have seen it time and time again. A lot of people get heavily focused in terms of strength. Like they want to get strong. So they lose some weight and they're like, I just want to get fucking strong now, which is cool because lifting weights is cool. And I will say, I did deadlifts for the first time in a program yesterday for the first time in a very, very, very long time. And I was like, I understand. This is the first time I've got it. And I was like, this is a good feeling, just being able to lift some fucking heavy shit off the ground. So deadlifts are back in. So strength.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah,
buddy. I can do it.
So a physique goal, a strength-based goal, and a conditioning goal. And whenever I say a conditioning goal, I mean like your overall fitness. I'm not going to use the word cardio because people will say, my cardio is lacking. So if we're doing like a higher rep set or something, they feel like their body has the capacity to do it in terms of strength, but their quote unquote cardio doesn't. So the 3 main goals will be physique related, strength related, and conditioning related. And obviously we will sort of format that and map it out over a time period as to what's going to be a priority, what's going to be the focus, and how we're going to sort of navigate that over essentially what will be a 12-month or beyond timeframe. Initially, then what we will do is we'll all move into week 0. So as we said, we're going to start as a group. The start date is going to be the 17th of July, which will be pretty much bang on a month from when this is released. So we'll release this next Tuesday. We're pretty much a bang on. So anybody who wants involved, like I said, you have a month to get your shit together and get in. The one thing that I haven't done in the past is do an initial testing week. Now, this is something I'm going to introduce to everybody across the board, because I know my existing clients will be like, well, I want to fucking do that, because I can't do anything without everybody wanting to get involved in it, which is cool. But two of the main markers from a health perspective that we're really going to focus on is VO2 max and rest and heart rate. And the reason that we're going to focus that is essentially, if you think about yourself before and your stress management or lack of, in the initial questionnaire that I send out, there is a question on how you manage stress, and a lot of people are just like, I don't, which is not good. So the goal or the idea behind week 0 is everybody's going to go through a testing week to see where they're at in terms of what their VO2 max is. There's no like right or wrong in this. It's just basically getting a baseline of numbers so we have something else to look back on. VO2 max is the maximal volume of oxygen your body can process, and then your maximum heart rate, which is essentially the maximum number of beats that your body can pump per minute. A quick sort of side note on that, there's obviously the general calculation of your 220 minus your age should give you what your maximal heart rate is. Luke was basically like, fuck that. That's just a sort of arbitrary number. Like, you can't push past it. And he says his maximal heart rate was 202. Now, that would make him 18, and he's 46. So it definitely can be progress made in terms of that. So essentially, the idea in week 0 is correlate the data, have an understanding where you're at, and sort of see where you're at in terms of like stress management overall. Then what we'll do is we will go through the sort of the group call to make sure, just get an idea as to where everybody is, how they find the process, and sort of map out what the next mission or phases are going to be. I think we sort of boiled it down to 3 phases, and I can relate to this in some sense. Like, you can sit and say, well, I'm trying to achieve this and I'm trying to achieve this. Essentially, it comes down to 3 phases, and you and I can hash out the names of this a little bit further. But essentially the 3 phases are going to be the initialization phase. So essentially that is going to be getting your body primed to actually move into the next phase, because I think that's something that I have definitely overlooked. And truthfully, it's more for a case of wanting to deliver on a promise to a client without fixing the initial problems. And I think if you spend X amount of weeks, obviously it's going to be person dependent, focusing on managing stress, managing digestion, managing recovery, managing sleep, managing your hydration, and the things that sort of prime your body to be in a state to handle more stress at the other side, you're going to have a more successful journey off the back of it. So it's going to be made very clear that, like, yes, we'll go through this initial phase that's not going to be focused on fat loss. We're not worried about what the scale is doing. Essentially, the numbers that we're worried about are rest and heart rate, your VO2 max, and your blood pressure, probably more than anything. So that's going to be the initial one. I'm going to steal this from Matt, and we can change this up in whatever way we want. He said whenever he used to coach clients, and he stole this from someone else, and I can't credit the person because I can't remember who it is. So Matt's just fully getting the credit. He used to call it managing your shreds, which is your stress, your hydration, your recovery, your energy, your digestion, and your sleep. So they're essentially going to be the however many things that is. 6, 5, 7.
Shreds?
5, 6. 6 things that we're going to focus on initially.
I was like,
yeah, same. I was doing exactly the same thing. So they're going to be the 6 things that we're managing in the initial phase. Now, they will always be a part of the process, and they will always be something that we continue to monitor to make sure that we're managing. But I think nailing those 6 things initially in that first phase will give you a lot more longevity in the phases that come after that.
So that's a lot to digest, right? But I also think putting them into 3 phases makes a lot of sense. It's interesting because, one of my friends has just recently, changed his life while living a healthy lifestyle and everything else, counting calories and doing everything we preach. And his first phase that he did was essentially the initialization phase, which is kind of getting his mind right, body right, getting the habits formed, doing the things that you needed to do. And then he did his shredding phase, and he was talking about how his wife was enjoying what he looked like and his physique, and could see the differences. And he was hitting the gym quite often, and he was losing all the weight. And then he calls me last week. He's like, I need to bulk up, man. So this is exactly it. So I've just described the first phase, right? So and that's how we broke it down, and that is essentially what it is for people. So initialization phase is going to be the first one. That's managing your stress, your habits, as you said, behavior, like
getting your body in a position that you can then send it on the other side. The other two phases, and these will go in different orders depending on the person. It's not like everybody's just going to go through the same one. Some people will come to me and they're in a pretty good position, like their rest and heart rate's in a good spot, their blood pressure's in a good spot, and they don't need to go through that phase. So they'll just move into whatever it is that their goal is after that. The second phase is going to be optimization. So that's your fat loss phase. So we'll go, okay, like we've managed this, this, and this. We're in a good spot. Do you want to send it in terms of a fat loss phase? We'll map out 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 20 weeks, whatever we think it needs to be. And then we'll send it in terms of that phase, reminding you as you go that that is the focus. And we're not necessarily worried. I'll keep an eye on it, but we're not necessarily worried because there is going to be additional stress on the body. The third phase or mission is going to be the elevation phase. And that is essentially improving. And it doesn't necessarily need to be muscle building specific. It could be performance related in terms of the gym. So whether it's strength related, or even if it's a case of you decide you want to run a marathon for something fucking whatever ridiculous reason you want to do that, then that's the phase that we'll focus on. And the cool thing will be is these will all be interchangeable, client dependent. As I said, some people will come in, they can just move into fat loss phase, or some people come in and they're lean and they've already done the stuff on the other side and they can just move into the elevation phase. And then on the other side of that, you know, it's like you get into the position that you're maybe carrying a little bit too much body fat because we've maybe pushed the surface a little bit far. And then we'll go back to the optimization phase and we can just sort of pick and choose them as we go through. I'm toying with the phase mission word. I think mission is better because we use the reference of like, we talked about GTA, but I realize there are many other games in that. But you think about the main mission of, for example, the optimization phase. I'll have side quests on the side. So like it's tick box exercise for points, bonus, gratification, XP, whatever you want to call it. So like, you know, it's consistency in getting your check-ins done on time on a weekly basis, or hitting your steps X amount of days in a row, or hitting your hydration targets on X amount of days in a row. And I'll sort of gamify the whole thing that, you know, okay, right, I have to do this for 7 weeks in a row and I'll get whatever it is on the other side. So there are going to be the three phases, and then we'll focus on side missions to keep it, I guess, engaging as we go through the process. Because if I tell you you're going to be in a fat loss phase for 20 weeks, you need something that's going to sort of monitor that the whole way to keep you engaged the whole way through it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when I was talking to my buddy about this whole thing, you know, we all go through this. Even you know, just the other day, Erin, she was, you know, lifting some much heavier weights at Orange Theory, and she could start to see, you know, the separation with her delts, and she's like, oh, I want more of that, you know. And it's interesting because, you know, it takes women specifically a lot longer, I think, to kind of realize that, you know, the tonality aspects, because most women, their fear for, at least, again, I'm not speaking, you know, I'm not generalizing here, I'm just trying more speak what we hear is, you know, they don't want to get too bulky or big, right? And unless you're, you know, unless women are doing steroids, you know, you're not going to get too bulky or big. You know, your muscles aren't going to be designed to grow that large without copious amounts of testosterone and other things that you're throwing out there. However, you can definitely get a defined look, you know, that is more, you know, more separation of your delts and, you know, your back muscles and your glutes and your hammies, which, you know, seems to be a very, you know, important one for a lot of women. You know, those are the things that you can get more definition on. And yes, a little bit of size, but nothing that's going to be like, hey, you're going to look like, you know, Arnold, you know, when you start coming through. It's not going to happen like that. So, you know, you I think a lot of both men and women struggle with the exact same thing, which is once they get down to the desired weight that they want, they realize, hey, I'm not toned, you know, I'm not, I don't have the physique that I'm looking for. How do I actually go and do it? And that's where you really start getting into, you know, three phases. And what's interesting is, you know, you can kind of go from like 1 to 2 to 3 to 2 to 3 to 2 to 3 to 2 to 3, right?
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, it's kind of a mix and match depending on what your goals and objectives are, you know, like we've talked about before, being in a slight surplus or deficit. But I think, you know, structurally putting into three categories is a lot more simple. Mm-hmm. And I also think it really outlines the process of what a lot of folks really struggle and go to. I think number two, by the way, of shredding the weight down is probably, you know, it's a controversial one for me because if I look at where I'm at today, I wouldn't want to go down to the losing the weight phase because I know I can do it, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're first going through this, you need to have that phase. You need to say, hey, I can do this and I can have success. So it's okay for me to gain some weight. And, you know, that's really hard for a lot of people that have struggled, you know, with weight their whole life, you know, and I think it's also going to be a struggle for them, you know, at least consistently. I'm sure you see this too, where, you know, their calories are relatively high, right? And, you know, you're used to, hey, cut calories. I was talking to somebody the other day that was talking about how they were able to lose all this weight, but he was going through what he did, and he was like literally eating a salad a day. And that was it. Like, yeah, you starved your fucking body. I'm like, how did you feel, dude? He's like, oh, I felt horrible. I felt like shit the whole day. I didn't have any energy. I just basically slept all day. I'm like, okay, well, that's not what you need to do. Like, just don't do that again.
Yeah,
right?
not a good sales pitch for sure. And
No.
actually, to touch on that, to give you a bit of a perspective shift on that, like obviously a general, and this is definitely like a bodybuilder mindset or like a meathead mindset. You know, if you think about a extended fat loss phase or a prep phase or whatever it is, generally as you go through it, how it runs is you start with a certain amount of calories and you start with a relatively low amount of cardio. As the weeks go on, your calories will become less and your cardio will increase. So literally, the harder it gets in terms of the nutrition piece, the harder it gets in terms of the cardio piece as well. So one sort of reframe, and I'm going to focus quite a lot on this, is essentially front load as much cardio as possible. So whenever you have more calories, you have more energy. The benefit of that is there's a lot of studies to back that you will get like metabolic benefits from front loading cardio and doing it first, because you have the energy and you have the ability and you have the intensity to do it, that will carry on throughout the entire phase as well. So your ability to recover between sets, your ability to recover between sessions, your ability like to have an overall higher conditioning output as you go through it. So I'm going to do it a little bit backwards in terms of that. And then obviously you will have some level of cardio as you come into it, but as we start to drop calories, we'll start to drop cardio as well, just from a, I guess, energy management perspective, to make sure that we're getting the most out of the phase and not actually just drilling you into the ground, because then it'll come back to the first phase where I have to go back to stress management. So it's like trying to juggle all of the balls at once, essentially.
And I look forward to, the times where I have less and less cardio, right? So the more lifting and less cardio is always, which is, remember I used to do Orange Theory 3 times a week or even 4 times a week. Yeah. I'm down to 2, which, I would honestly drop down to 1 if it wasn't for Aaron. So, but, I
but you are doing 18 hours of airsoft every week now as well.
The airsoft is definitely, but that's fun cardio. That's your shooting.
Yeah. But again, one of the things that we spoke about is like, it doesn't necessarily always have to be like go on elliptical for 20 minutes. Like do something that you find fun. And I actually got a couple of resources of like how you can essentially find out how much of a specific activity that you need to do, that you can like negotiate. Okay, well, if I don't want to do 8,000 steps today, what can I do in terms of like if I want to go roller skating or something, which is actually quite a cool resource that you can actually just chop and change the things that you're doing, so you're not always doing the same thing. And so yeah, I think it's going to be cool having those phases. And for me, I think if I know what I'm doing, I know how long I'm doing it for, it allows me to be a little bit more focused. So if I literally map it out for, a 12-month period and people know what they're up against, how long they're up against it for, it'll keep them a little bit more in line. So yeah, it's going to be cool. In terms of the setup, and this is something like has sort of evolved over time, but the way that it's going to work is we're going to have the initial call. As I said, we're going to start on the 17th of July. That's going to be the sort of onboarding, goal setting, and start date. I'm going to have a check-in week with everybody, our check-in call with everybody about 2 weeks later. I think that this is something that I have been, I guess, threatening to do for some time, because I think I try and go in with as little as possible. I realize I've just offloaded a lot of stuff, but I try and go in with as possible. But there is a lot of like lifestyle changes that can happen, and I feel like people can get overwhelmed in it. So additional sort of touch points and calls throughout the months and throughout the whole time working together, I think would be beneficial. So 2 weeks later, a bit of a check-in call to make sure everybody's good, make sure they have all the data that they need, and then essentially plan out what the phases are going to look like. For anybody who is going to be in Vegas for Black Hat and DEF CON, I am going to arrange like a bit of a small gathering. Obviously I'll have some sessions planned and whatever else, so there'll be an additional touch point on that. Obviously optional, you don't need to come to Vegas, but it's just the timing of how everything is worked out. And then towards the end of August, we'll have our programming call. So there'll be no real emphasis on specifics around your training program. There will be basics in terms of, right, I just want you to do 3 full body sessions a week, and I can outline them, but it'll not be super specific in terms of that. I do have somebody who's coming in to do the programming, which we'll talk about soon, because I haven't actually told anybody else yet. So they're going to come in. And it's you, Dave, by the way. I haven't even told you. No, I'm kidding. I don't think anybody would want that. I don't think anybody would want you, and especially within the first 4 weeks for you to do. Yeah. Never. Everybody disappears after they get their program for Dave. But yes.
Making his business.
So yeah, towards the end of August, then we'll move into the programming and essentially how the training blocks will run in like 14 to 16 week periods with do block reviews, and within that, what I'm going to do is like testing weeks, and I'm going to do this across the board with all clients. So essentially, say the first week of the quarter, as an example, at some point throughout the week, I want everybody to go and test what their blood pressure is, what their max heart rate is, what their VO2 max is, just to make sure that we're progressing in those things as well, because I think they're very important health markers. In terms of like weekly schedule and other bits, and this is something that definitely has changed from when we first started, because obviously we now have Kira on board, we have Sean on board, and we have Lorena on board in terms of their calls. So there will be the regular group calls that will happen on a Monday. That is basically me just in a bit of a roundtable discussion on insert whatever the thing is. So if you've put in your check-in that you're really struggling to hit your protein target while you're traveling, then we'll all just talk about hitting protein targets when you're traveling. I think that that's a good resource to have a group of, up to 30 people that are going through a similar thing or have their own ways that they navigate these things. And then every Thursday we have an experts call, and they just run in rotation based on whatever week it is. Kira hosts a call every single month. She does obviously the mindset and high performance stuff. So she'll continue to host that call. This is open and available to everybody. The second is a coaching call. Generally, that is me and another coach. So we had recently Kieran from TMP, Total Mental Performance, who was on the podcast. He did the one, I think it was two weeks ago. So generally, I bring another coach on in that. And I have a lot of, like, an extensive list that I'll run through as to, like, other coaches I'm going to bring on over the time period. Sean will do a call once a month. He obviously does breathwork and meditation. Everybody will also have access to his 555 club, which is essentially breathwork, meditation, and journaling, 5 sessions per day, 5 days per week. I'm not saying you go all 25 sessions, but again, a good additional resource to sort of check in. And this is Kira and Sean are going to work on the sort of mental side, and then myself, insert new person who's going to do the programming, and Lorena are going to work on the physical side as well. So it'll be cool to have that. Then Lorena will do her mobility call once a month as well. And then if there is a 5th Thursday in the month, it'll be back to me. And one thing I'm going to do is like a live form check. So if you submit a video of you doing a deadlift, or I can just pull any from Twitter and I'll just go through the comments for the people who are giving your shit on your form on your deadlift. So I'll do like form check videos live, because I think that, yes, while it's beneficial for me to review it for you, I think it's good for people to see me review, to see, number one, how other people move, and number two, how I see it as a coach and sort of what they can look out for if they're training or if they're coaching with someone else. In terms of like other coaches to bring on, as I said, I want this to be an education process. Like I want this to be something that people come away with actual knowledge from. And I think, the scope of things that people want to learn. And the call that I hosted with the group last Monday, I says, look, who do you want me to bring on? Like, what do you want to know about? So obviously we have Kieran as a resource. We have Gareth Timmins, who I've spoken about before. He is a former Royal Marine Commando. He'll come on and talk about mental resilience, and I'm trying to get him roped in to come across and speak at the Belfast event. He's a cool fucking guy too. We'll bring on coaches to talk about sleep and recovery, time management, male hormones, female hormones. I had a request, and I found the person on Friday at Matt's event to come on talk about tips for running. As you're well aware, there's absolutely nothing I can add of value to that conversation, but a guy called Tom McCleary is going to come on. He's a long distance and like an endurance athlete. Dietitians to talk about gut health and anti-inflammatory foods. So there'll be plenty of like other coaches and other resources coming in, which I think will be cool for me to be able to bring in and just have cool conversations with people who are experts in their field.
So, one thing I've always appreciated with the process, right? In that, I've talked about this before on the podcast, like how you have a trainer and how you're always continuously learning, right? Your health and fitness journeys, especially like these 3 phases and what you're doing with the program, you can't expect to have desired results without having an understanding or foundation of the knowledge that you need to actually go and do it. And I think that's the big misconception that a lot of people fail to realize, is that, unless you do have a trainer or somebody that is very knowledgeable in the subject area, or you dive down into a rabbit hole and do your own, you're not going to learn the things the tools that you're going to need to be necessary for this to be a successful journey the rest of your life. And, the knowledge that I've learned being in this program, and what I've learned from, you and through experiences and building upon that, is that I can be successful with this, the rest of my life. And I have been, by the way. We're going on, almost 4 years now. And, I haven't had any struggles at all with being able to maintain minus, I didn't do as good in one cutting phase, but hey, you still look good.
The lessons are, do you know what I mean? Like I said, I've been there, right? I've been there myself. Do you mean sometimes other things take a priority? Sometimes you take things for granted. Like as long as the lessons are there, like you can't expect to do this forever and every single week, every single month, every single quarter, every single year to be absolutely perfect. But I think as long as you take the lessons from it and understand that actually sometimes bringing things right back to basics, as we have done, of like just get your fucking check-in sheet in, and I can review the data and I can give you information back, is a lesson within itself.
Yeah, for sure. And this is all like learning lessons for everybody and what works for them, what doesn't. And everybody's goals are different, everybody's bodies are different, everybody's lives are different. It's finding the knowledge that allows you to do all of those things that you want to accomplish in those confines, right? Mm-hmm. And there's no one size fits all for anybody. In any of this, you may be shorter and stockier, you may be taller and slim. There's so many different variations of our body types, so many different variations of where we live and the food that we have access to, the schedules that we have. So the customized approach that you do to understanding our bodies and then being able to program that into something that is doable is great. I was actually just watching Dr. Mike from Renaissance Periodization. Great YouTube channel to go through. He annoys me at first, but now he's actually kind of funny. I like him now. He's good.
As long as you can keep up with the fact that he'll just go on a complete tangent, but he still will get back to the point.
Yes. His tangents are actually pretty funny. But one thing he was talking about was, one of the videos was, how do you, if you're not gaining muscle or you're not gaining the appropriate amount of muscle, why is that? And one of the ones that he said was, well, hey, if you're just starting off anew, going to the gym 2 times a week is doable, and you will see, constant progress with that. But, as you get to the intermediary and advanced stages, 4 to 6 times a week is what you really need to be at. But, that's the thing, like, if you can only do 2 times a week, well, good. You're going to start to adjust your schedule. And as you start to see the results, enjoy it, you're going to want to do more. And you want to do, 3, 4, 5, or 6, times a week, or 10 or 15, if in my case. But Ben won't let me. It's one of those things where it's this progress that allows you to get to these specific goals, and that's what I've always admired about your program versus anybody else, and why I eventually signed up with you. I had a few different choices to go with, and when I first interviewed you, it's like the customized approach to myself, my schedule, the knowledge, the building it, the foundation. This wasn't a take a bunch of ketones and do keto and do cardio 7 times a week and starve yourself. This was, hey, this is a process and we're going to get you there. And let's first start off with building everything up, getting you a foundation, shredding it down, building it back up again. And those types of things, have been successful for so many hundreds of people, if not thousands of people that you've helped, over the past few years. So, I'm excited to see where you go with it. And, I think it's always important to, innovate, simplify, make things easier, be able to relate to more folks and people. So it sounds like you got a good handle on that, and it's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, and I think the thing about it is everybody gives a shit about different things. Like some people don't care about gut health or digestion. Some people don't care about sleep. Like what I want to be able to provide is a resource for everybody. And it maybe is a case of they don't care about it right now, but then something will happen. They'll be like, oh, actually, I really need to focus on my digestion and my gut health, or I really need to improve my sleep. So being able to build that out as a resource, selfishly for myself as well, because I'm now in a position where I can bring these people in and I get to learn from them. I'm not here claiming to be an expert in everything. And I know that people like dedicate their entire lives to, managing sleep and recovery and being able to sort of train and teach and educate people like that. So it's a continued education process for me as well. And actually, I'll say I started in my new training block on Sunday with the goal of trying to keep up with the big boys in Belfast when we do the Rogue £1,000 or 1250 Club challenge.
Or 10,000 for me. But
man, oh man. Like the video that I took of me squatting, I have a lot of work to do. So actually, to give a little bit of context to this. And again, I want to sort of reiterate, like I have Kiera on board, I have Sean on board, I have Luann on board. All of these people I work with in a one-to-one capacity. It's not just I'm bringing total strangers in that I don't have any experience with. So I have new coach that will remain unnamed for now, who has written my training block that is in a little bit more of a powerlifting or power building style, doing like 4 sets of 2 reps, and I'm like, what do I do the rest of the time? To just sit here and like try and fucking get my breath back, or look at the video of myself and realize how ridiculous I look. So he built out the overall training block, and then what I did was I sent it to Lorena, and she literally put the mobility pieces that I need in there. So she was able to review. We did like a mobility screening test, and then she's reviewed the videos of my squat and other bits and pieces. So it'll be super specific to me in terms of, okay, right, I have shitty ankle mobility, not an excuse. How do we improve it? So the next sort of, I guess, 14 weeks for me are going to be a slightly different style of training. But yeah, absolutely hilarious in terms of how I move in those specific 3 movements, because it's just things that I've avoided over time. So again, an evolution for me and how I do things from my own trainers.
It's awesome. Well, exciting news. Excited to see where you go with it, and when you're going to be releasing.
So as soon as this goes live, I'll put the link below for anybody to book a call. As I said, the calls will be me and whoever books the call, and we'll just sort of chat through the process and logistics and expectations and goals and where they're at and what they've achieved before and what they're trying to achieve and where their struggles are, day-to-day life, stuff like that. And then we will be launching our first onboarding call will be the 17th of July. So about a month out from when this goes live.
Awesome. Well, you know where to tune in. Where can they go?
The link will be below, or it'll be on my site, or we'll put it'll be on pretty much every social media platform at WeHackHealth, or at my own at BenCanning87 on Twitter. And I'm sure that you will share it as well. So if you follow Hacking Dave or Fitness Dave at Fitness Dave, you can find it on his page too.
What if that's taken?
I've already checked.
Sorry,
I was going to start a parody account of Lifting Dave.
That's a good one.
So yeah, I'm excited for it. And also, like, you know, we will continue to do the events. We'll continue to program. I'm already started to plan out what the events and stuff next year, which obviously I think is a huge part of it. You'll be a part of the community. You'll be a part of the movement. You'll be a part of the supplements company. Like, it's just cool to see how everything is growing and evolved over the past, I guess, 147 weeks that we'll be doing this.
Awesome, man. Well, good stuff. Tune in, and I know we'll have more information on more podcasts around how that's going, and move from there.
One thing that you and I need to do, obviously I've launched the Digital Interactions podcast, which is me talking to a client. I think we need to, we should do one. I will host and I will interview you. Got good feedback from Justin's one. Probably one of the most viewed podcasts on YouTube that we've had, so I don't know why people are tuning into that versus listening to it in other places. So the one that will come after this Thursday will be Jason Wilbur, which is a fucking cool story too. So I've enjoyed those, but yeah, you and I should do one, and we'll do a slightly different format.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun, and it's always good to go through the history and you know where you come from to where you are now, the beginnings, you know, the early Batman days, and then to
the origin story.
The origin Batman story for the 30th time. But no, I'd be happy to go through that for sure. Last thing I wanted to hit on was fish oils again. So this is, I think, the 5th podcast talking about fish oils. Just really quick on the fish oils one. New study came out showing immense benefits in cognitive decline. So meaning if you take fish oils, you have less cognitive decline. So again, you know, it's looking like within moderation, just stick with it. You know, don't do excess amounts of fish oils. 850 milligrams, usually probably the or I think it's 825 is the recommended, but 850, you know, something around that mark is a good baseline. And that's all I got on fish oils, and I'm probably never talking about fish oils ever again.
Until next week, when you're like, just one more thing, we got to talk about fish oils before I go. You're trying to get you're doing the side mission of how many podcasts I can say fish oils in.
Well, and one thing I would say is, Dr. Mike did have a good episode on if you're not getting the gains that you want to at the gym, the reasons for it, and he had like 15 different ones. So that's a good one to watch. But the one that I really enjoyed was, what are the body parts that you have to work out a ton to look huge? And can you get what number one was? What would be the number one body part where when somebody walks up to you, they think you're huge because of that body part?
I would say shoulders.
Shoulders, nailed it.
Yeah,
that's what I thought too, and it was right.
Yeah.
So shoulders are the one that give you the V taper look and the big definition of your shoulders. So if you have wide shoulders, you inherently look big. So by training shoulders more often, and he actually said your frontals and your rears aren't going to do it. That'll only give you your side view. He's like, doing just spamming lateral raises and shoulder presses and things like that's going to give you the big shoulders. That give you the big look. The second one was arms. Mm-hmm. Third was chest. Mm-hmm. Fourth was back, and then he got into some ancillary ones like traps and things like that as kind of minor ones. But he said if you have big traps and nothing else, you're gonna look like a freaking nature, like you have an app that's growing in your neck or something. So you got to make sure it's balanced.
Yeah, and actually, I'll say this: I have had a few random encounters where people have commented on me being a big person, which is new for me. There's a couple, like Luke said it. He put, like, just in a passing comment. It was like about how big I am. I was like, this is a new thing. And then there was a guy. Yeah, I was walking through London on Saturday, and there was a guy like he was trying to sell something on the street. Can't really remember what it was, but he was like also having a bit of banter with it. And his comment was, I don't know what he was trying to sell, and he was joking, but his comment was, if anybody wants to fight me, it'll be a £5. And then I like £5, and I walk past, and he goes, fucking hell, the size of you'll be 50 quid for you. And I was like, people are commenting on the size of how big I am. I was like, this is a new experience for me. So maybe I'm reaching new heights.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say is when I was in Tampa with Chris, we went to a gym. It was kind of like a commodity gym, one of those, like commercial gyms, like a Planet Fitness, but I can't remember the name of it. But the place was packed, and I definitely was not the biggest guy there. So,
so they've got work to do.
Got some work to do here. I was like, oh boy, I need to go to the gym more often for some motivation because these boys are way bigger than I am.
At least you're the biggest person who trains in your gym.
I'm the biggest person in my gym that trains in my gym. So
strongest person, fastest person.
Yes, everything. Until Dom comes in and then he's stronger than me. But
yeah, that's true. Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
all right.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Yeah. I will see you next week.
Later.